If you've ever found yourself chasing a loss, or spending more time and money than you can afford on gambling, then you might have a gambling problem. In a world full of temptation, it can be difficult to maintain control. And fighting addiction can be really tough for you and your loved ones. Gamban can remove temptation by blocking your devices from accessing gambling websites and apps, wherever you are in the world. Easy to install and non-intrusive, Gamban is a helpful tool for tackling gambling addiction. Gamban can help you get back on your feet and give you the time you need to enjoy the more important things in life.
Warning, this show may be triggering for anybody experiencing gambling-related harm. Please watch cautiously. We speak from our experiences only. Please seek professional help for a gambling addiction.
That's definitely easier. You got it?
I'm just gonna have to go forward. If I start crying, this is why.
It's not about the emotional conversation we're having about gambling harm. Hi everyone, welcome to Bet Free Life. I'm Christina, and I last placed a bet March 6th of 2021.
And I'm Brian, and I last placed a bet in July of 2014. Christina, we were just on a panel together. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? We were on a panel together.
I'm good. Neither one of us are dead. We're still here. We've got episodes in the can, so to speak. We've got some good episodes coming up with Dave from Fall In, the Problem Gambling podcast for military service members and veterans, and a gentleman by the name of Mike from Nebraska who works to help people with the gambling addiction, as well as Tara and Christina did an episode together. And then Christina and I have a couple podcast episodes as well. So we've got more episodes coming out. We just thought we would check in and make sure everyone still knew that we were alive.
Yeah, exactly. We're here. And
one of us had a baby, and so that kind of took me out of the picture for a bit. So that's what I've been doing. And then the baby made me crazy enough to shave my head.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about your new hairdo, but that makes sense.
Yeah, once I shave it up here, I got to grow it down here
to balance it out, because life.
Otherwise, my head is too light. It has to remain the same weight. So Christina and I were just on a panel for, was it Friends of Recovery in New York? Was that it?
Yep, that was it.
And we got to talk about what it's like to podcast your feelings away about gambling harm. And so we and Steve D and Bobby M were all on the panel with us because they all do podcasts as well. And it was cool. We got to talk about what it's like to do this, literally to do what we're doing right now.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that asked a lot of great questions too about podcasting and how impactful it is for recovery. And I thought everybody had some excellent answers to a lot of those questions, as far as, you know, how doing this is part of our personal recovery, along with helping others, you know, navigate their recovery in whatever way they use these podcasts for.
There was one question, and it at the moment I answered it and went on with my life. But then the more I thought about it, it bothered me. And that was the one that said, "Aren't you afraid that you're going to get addicted to podcasting?" And I just thought
that was an odd one.
What are we, just we're just addicts who can't help ourselves, and we got to get addicted to anything we're doing? That's what I got to. And in the moment, I was just like, I think I said yes. I did get addicted to it a bit because it feels good to do. So why not keep doing
And I think you made the point of like, wouldn't it be better to be addicted to podcasting than gambling? I'm pretty sure you said that. Like, but that was an odd question. Like, what is it?
It made me
Yeah.
think like she thinks we just can't help ourselves.
Like anything we do, we're going to be all in or compulsive. Can you hear my cats doing the zoomies outside my door?
No,
It was like shaking the house. But sorry, got distracted. But like with anything, you know, compulsive behavior runs through me. And so when I answer that question, I'm like, I have to be very careful when I do things because in the beginning of doing the Broke Girl Society and doing all these different things, I would say I was probably borderline addicted to it because I needed something to help me just get through the day, especially on those when it's just like, they say one day at a time, when sometimes it's literally 1 minute at a time, to just try and set with yourself and do something. And so I was extremely distracted. And I talked about how my podcast started within, let's see, 4 months of me just starting recovery. Like 4 months. I released it July 1st. I started recovery March 6th. So like March, April, May, June. Is that 4 months? Yeah, 4 months, close enough. Because I wanted to really share what recovery was like for me and where I was at in the early days. And I felt like that was just such an important thing for my own journey so that those who are just starting out can connect at the beginning of the podcast. And it's so interesting how it just helped me, whether I was addicted or not to it. Like it helped me.
I mean, when you find something that feels good, you do it.
But I don't know if it was necessarily the same like dopamine high. It's not the same. It's not the same feeling.
No.
As
gambling feels way better.
Well, it does. It does in the moment.
In the moment. Not 10 minutes later. No. 10 minutes later, it's awful.
Right. We can laugh now, but there was a point in our lives where we couldn't laugh at all. And yeah.
Have you heard about, that reminds me of something that I talked about with Jeff once, and we were talking about people who will watch online slots as a way of reducing harm because they still get the satisfaction of watching the machine, but they're not interacting with it.
Yeah, I have heard of that. I think it was our friend Ryan from All Bets Are Off. He was telling me
I just talked about it again with Jeff, and so it was top of mind.
Yeah, and that was something he did until he was talking with somebody, and they said that by doing that, by trying to reduce harm that way. And this is why I am not a person that advocates for controlled gambling or harm reduction when it comes to it, because when you're doing that, you're not actually allowing your brain to heal from the constant impact of the dopamine hit. And so if you're keeping your brain looking for that, it's not allowing it to heal and go into a place of normal function when it comes to that. And I'm sure there's all kinds of technical terms for that I just totally messed up, but you get what I'm saying. Like if you it's
Neither
almost
one
like
of us
keeping
went
you
to
in
school
action
to be a clinician, so I'm not worried.
Yeah, it's almost like by doing that, you're still keeping your mind in action. And so that's why I'm not like, we'll probably never have those conversations about harm reduction and things like that, because to me it doesn't make sense. But if that's for you, that's for you. But
no, it's not. Definitely not for me, because it would just make me want to gamble, and it would just piss me off too watching it.
I had somebody send me some YouTube videos once when they were trying to explain to me. I didn't even know that there were live stream YouTubers that will live stream while they're betting.
Yeah.
And this was pretty early on in my recovery, and they sent me the links, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like the Facebook games? And so then I was watching them and I was like, oh, okay. Like, no, I'm not going to be one of those people that can do this. Like,
this is literally somebody at a casino with their cell phone
playing a game that I played all the time.
Yeah.
And so then the noise and, and I always say the one thing that triggers me the most is the smell. Noises don't trigger me, sounds don't trigger me, but there's something about that smell that the casino has, like
Cigarettes?
it's the cigarettes, the oxygen, despair, hopelessness. I don't know, but like they've got that aroma. And it's like I'll be walking around Walmart in my town, because we're surrounded by casinos, and somebody will walk past me and I'll get a whiff of that casino smell. And I'm like, I know where you've been. I mean,
Yeah.
it's weird. Like, I hope I don't embarrass myself doing that, but I can definitely, like, it will instantly take me back. Not to the casino, but back to the memories of being at the casino.
I can hear the slot machine in my head. Like I can hear that, and not the slot machine I would ever play, but the sounds of the ones around you that just constantly go and go and go.
Constantly
And
ringing.
it doesn't trigger me, but I can hear it perfectly right now in my head of what it sounds like. And so when I hear a slot machine, it puts me right back in there. Doesn't trigger me to want to gamble, but it does put me right back to that feeling of being in the casino.
Yeah, and I think I don't ever worry about myself going back to gambling so much. When people ask me like, are you afraid you'll go back to gambling? And I'm like, that's not my fear. My fear is that I'll just get lost in something like that again, whether it be addiction or a relationship or something. Like that's my biggest fear. And I think whenever I have these flashback moments of, I call it PTSD from my gambling. Like I really feel like I have PTSD from gambling because I caused myself so much harm and I caused others so much harm. And I have these flashbacks of like just hopelessness when I think about gambling. And so it's not so much the gambling that scares me, it's just being lost in it. Just being lost in something after recovery has shown me so much. So I am just fearful of that. So, I can make light of like the smells or the sounds or whatever, but my biggest fear is not the gambling itself. It's getting lost in something like that again. So that's what I try and stay focused on.
Not getting lost.
Not getting lost. And I think that for me has been like eye-opening for my recovery journey. It was like we all have to work on the internal shit, right? Like, because you agree that gambling or most addictions is a symptom probably of internal issues, right? For a lot of people. I'm sure there's always going to be an exception to that, but for a lot of people it's a lot of times internal issues. And so as long as I just keep working on those internal issues, I don't feel like I'm going to get lost.
But I also think everybody has internal issues.
Absolutely.
And gambling's addictive.
So is sugar.
So everything. Yeah. And I eat plenty of sugar.
Not me.
I take breaks from it. I never took breaks from gambling. I never said like, all right, I'm going to take 30 days off of gambling this month. But with booze, with sugar, I've done that. I've been like, I'm going to take a month off and not enjoy any of those things. And it usually works pretty well to kind of reset myself. Gambling, I never did that. Gambling was like, oh, if I have money, I'm going.
That's me too. I didn't gamble every day. I only gambled when I had the money to gamble.
Yeah, like payday or the day after or somewhere around it.
But if I had money, like, and it gets to the point where you have a bare minimum, right? You have a bare minimum that you'll go. So like, I think for me, it got to the point where $100 didn't even tempt me to go.
Yeah. Mine was like 200. And even that, because I knew how quickly it would disappear.
Yeah.
And all I could think about was like driving down for 45 minutes just to walk in the door for 10 minutes and then be disappointed.
Yeah. And then have that long ride home to have to deal with it. So,
yeah. And so I totally did that too. Like eventually at the beginning it was hey, I got a little bit of money, cool.
Free
But
play
after a
would
while, it
pull
was
me
like it's
in.
just not worth it to go with just a
No,
little bit.
that's sad.
How quickly it disappears.
Yeah, and that's what it was, but it's just like, and I remember too having those moments where somebody around me would win $40 or they would win $100, and I'd be like, and their machine would be making noise and they'd be making noise, and I'd turn and look thinking it was this big thing, and it was just a very minimal amount of money, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, like come on. And that for me, it's like I wish I would have recognized those signs of like being jaded to like somebody else being happy because they want a little bit of money, which is normal, a normal reaction versus, me just being like rolling my eyes because it wasn't $1,000 or something. And I think, I mean, I just look back at those thoughts and I'm just, ugh, mad
I
at
think how
myself.
many like TVs I could have bought, because I would think of my money in terms of TVs, because that was the topic at work a lot of the times. Like, did you get a new TV? Yeah, I got a new TV. Yeah. It was, in the heyday of flat screens and stuff like that. And so I would always think of my losses in terms of like, man, I could have had 3 TVs. I could have had 4 TVs. Um, and it's just so strange. Instead, I should have been thinking about it. Boy, I could have eaten today. That would have been nice. I
Right.
just
I would have
kept the
had money for that flat tire that I have to deal with and now borrow money from somebody to deal with. That's how we should have been looking at it.
Yeah. Do you I to me it sounds like we're cavemen talking about when we used to go to the casino, whereas now everybody's just on their phone.
I know.
And I don't know. I would have The reason I would have been in a lot more trouble, and I always say I'd be in a lot more trouble with the phone, is that minimum goes away. Like, I've got $5. Cool. It's just
That's
on my phone.
true.
So if you gambled in the way that I gambled, I would always have $0 because I would gamble any little bit that was there if it was easy access, that I didn't have to go drive and then be disappointed by the trip home. The
Right.
disappointment would just be there in the next few minutes.
Yep. I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine if that was accessible to me while I was in my gambling. Um, because yeah, to not have to drive, to not have to leave the house, um, to be able to sit in my chair and zone out just like I do with TikTok. Like I I can't even imagine, honestly.
It would just been worse. I don't know how people are doing it these days. That's
I don't know either. Credit cards, they're able
that's
to
a
use their
foreign
credit
thought
cards
to me, to
easier.
be able to gamble on your phone and just not have any of those friction points of like, I have to get up and get more money, or I have to get up and go use the machine, or I have to get up and pee, because you can take the casino with you. I have to drive down there. I need gas money to go. None of that exists now.
Oh yeah. And I remember like making sure I didn't leave with like my last $20 so I could put it in the gas tank to get home. And then I always ended up putting it in and walking out with like $3, because I knew I had to get home. So it's like to be able to just sit there and not have to worry about that. And what I'm seeing more and more in the BGS though is a lot younger women who are struggling with the online gambling. And they've got kids at home and it's turning to it's 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 scary. It's scary to see, you know, it's scary to see them coming in younger and younger, and that they have families that they're trying to support and they're struggling with this addiction, and this addiction is causing them to choose gambling over a roof over their head or, the electric bill. And it's just, it's yeah, it's a lot when you think about
Do
it.
you
And
think they're choosing,
I don't think it's a choice. I mean,
or
as
do you
somebody
think
who
they're
knows,
compelled to go
like
gamble?
they're compelled. Like we have to say a choice because at the end of the day, at the end of the at the day, it's a choice, but it's a choice that I feel like I had no control over. Like I it's so hard to explain that to somebody. Like, you understand it, obviously, but it's so hard to explain that to somebody who's never struggled with something that's been so like taking over. It's like something's taken over your body and your decision making. And even like I would find myself at the casino and not even be phased on how I got there. It was like I was on autopilot. And so I feel like even though, I hear stories of mothers who are just like having to go to the food bank to get food for their kids because they gambled away their paycheck, and they're absolutely devastated that they can't stop and make a choice that doesn't do this to their family. And it's like, they're like, why am I doing this? And I'm like, because you've got an addiction, you've got a disease, you've got a sickness, and you need to heal it. And, those are some really hard conversations when you have with somebody. And I just think that's why it's so important that we just keep talking. We keep doing what we're doing.
Do you think there is a way to make somebody understand that you feel compelled to, at the end of the day, flush all your money down the toilet? Like, no, I gotta go get this money out of my hands.
Like there's something else is like I'm remote controlled by something else. I just think it's like with anything, it's going to be the capacity of the human you're talking to. If the human you're talking to has the capacity for empathy and understanding, then yes, I think you could very well be able to explain, like, look, I don't want to hurt my family. I'm not a monster. Like, I'm not, and monster is a hard word, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not this person. So it really just depends on the capacity of the human being that you're talking to. And that's with anything. If you're talking to a human being who refuses to understand that people can succumb to addiction, then, it's one of those things where it comes back to what you can control and what you can't. You can't control how other people understand and react things. And I think at the end of the day, it's just understanding that and just trying our best to take accountability for our own actions and to seek help.
Speaking of seeking help, if you are in need of help for a gambling addiction or you think you might have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let us know if you find success with that number. Our email is it the Bet Free Life or Bet Free Life? I'm always
thebetfreelife@gmail.com.
thebetfreelife@gmail.com. Feel free to email us there. We'll talk about anything that has to do with gambling on here. Feel free to email us there if you want to come on this and tell your story with your face on YouTube. But if you need help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's just the simplest way to get you help. There's state helplines as well. Obviously, you can just Google it in your own state. That's the easiest thing to do. But if you just are looking for the easy number to remember, 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yeah, and this is a good time to talk about our sponsor. If you or someone you know is struggling with online gambling and you'd like to learn more about the blockers you can put in place, go to gamban.com. Download that software. I think it's a minimal yearly fee, a minimal monthly fee, and there are a handful of states that offer it through their program, which you can go to our Facebook page, The Bet Free Life, and all those resources are listed at the top of the page. And I also listed the states that offer it because I never can remember them off the top of my head, that offer it through their state programs. But I think it's like $35 a year, maybe, or $4, $5 a month. So it's like when you compare it to your gambling losses,
I honestly think it's like $350 a month.
$350 a month. So it's a minimal fee, but it puts those blocks in place on your phone, on your computer. And like with anything, it's meant to be a barrier. It's meant to give you space between those thoughts of gambling and actually gambling. So it's a great tool. And they're a great company.
Good people. who have lived experience with gambling harm themselves, some of them. So it's coming from a good place.
Absolutely. You talked about one of our episodes. I wanted to share Mike with Nebraska. Mike from Nebraska. Let me say that like that.
Mike of the Nebraskans, of the Michaels from Nebraska.
Well, he was great to have on. And what's interesting is when I've talked to so many people across this globe, but especially in the States, and Nebraska is not a place that comes up, I think, very often at all, because they don't have legal gambling, right? I think they're just starting it. They're just starting the process.
You mean
of
casino gambling or online gambling?
Both.
Because I'm sure they have the lottery.
Yeah, I'm sure they have the lottery, but I just meant like online gambling or casino gambling, I think. Might be messing this up, but I'm pretty sure that they don't have legalized gambling. But what's interesting is they're seeing a lot of people that are on the state lines, who live across, who live in Nebraska, but gamble on the different state lines that offer gambling. And so they saw a need to create a gambling awareness program and resources and stuff like that. So I thought that was just really, really interesting, because when he said, I'm from Nebraska and I'd like to come on, and I'm like, Nebraska. But they are starting.
People don't live in Nebraska.
And do they gamble? Yeah, it was really that kind of thing. But he was really great conversation.
Yes. And we recorded that previous, so that'll be up shortly.
Yeah. And then Tara comes on to have
Shortly's
some
code
conversation.
for when I edit it.
Which you never know. And so Tara comes on, and I'm pretty sure we trashed you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You'll see that when you edit it.
I'm excited for that. I fell behind. There was babies and things going on, but back on it now. Here we are. So we're gonna put this new episode up first, and then put the older episodes out after, and then we'll be back with some new episodes with just Christina and myself talking again. And this is exciting because we're coming up on the 1 year where we started this. Granted, we haven't been weekly so it's not like that's a year's worth of episodes, but it is time-wise a year. And I think it's high time that we did our first live episode, Christina. That's my little challenge to you for.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the end of January, I want to do our first live episode.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So I think we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. So can I ask you a quick question before we take this out? Okay. So recently, there was a topic posed in the BGS about day counting. Okay. And I've heard you talk about this multiple times, and I just want to get your opinion on this. How do you feel about day counting when it comes to recovery?
I mean, generally speaking, I'm like, whatever works for you, whatever gets you to the next day. But I feel like it's important in the first few months, like, because it feels like progress then. Because if you're under a month, what do you still under a month? So it feels like progress to count the days. But I just think, like, once you hit a certain point, like generally a year-ish, counting the day, I have 5,329 days today. But again, if that's what works for somebody, then good for that.
There was a lot of the women were talking.
I don't even keep track of the day anymore. I stick with the month and the year just because it's too much just to even get the day anymore. It's just easy. Soon I'll just be like, I don't know, 2014. And then soon it'll be like the 20 teens.
Yeah, just like you were born in the 1900s now.
Yeah. Holy
cow. Man, you were born in the 1900s. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think for me, day counting was really important in the beginning. It was like that mile marker. Like, okay, I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I can understand where it adds a lot of pressure, because it seems like around that 90-day mark, I'll see people struggle and they'll usually slip back. And I was just curious on your thoughts on it and kind of the conversation around day counting. But like, I mean, I'm 19 months in recovery, so which is going pretty well. 592 days since I last placed a bet. And the only reason why I know that is because I was having this day conversation with the group, and so I had to look up my days. But I'm kind of into the month. Like right now I'm like 19 months. Like it's like toddler years.
Yeah.
19 months. Like that's how I feel like I'm in my recovery. I'm like in the toddler years of my recovery. Like
that's a good analogy though, because I think as you get farther away, you count bigger pieces.
Yeah.
You know, the only place I find day counting annoying is on the Reddit thread, the problem gambling Reddit thread. Because if you scroll through there, you'll see like day 4, day 5, day 7, day 12. And, you know, reading all that, it gets a little in my mind. So that's where I find it annoying. But it's helpful. I'm sure it's helpful to count the day, to be able to increase the number. I mean, I would count hours the first day.
Yeah. Like 16 hours down. At some point I got to go to sleep and I'll be fine. But
also I think if you're counting days, then you might be paying too much attention to it and not letting it go. You know, if you try to drive your mind back to your gambling, which is that I'm now 19 days away, now I'm 20 days away, that means gambling is still top of mind. And if you sort of let it go and you're like, oh, it's been a couple months, oh, it's been 3 months, then gambling doesn't have to be top of mind all the time. So I think it's dangerous in that regard. But other than that, whatever works.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a couple of them in there that are going to not do day counting this round, and so I'm going to see how that fares for them, and that way I you know, can really it's to each their own, I guess, right? Just like you said, to each their own.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating what people do. Like what people do for their dates, or how do they introduce themselves, what kind of language they use. I'm a recovering grateful recovery compulsive gambler, last place to bet July 23rd of 2014. You know what, and why we always feel like we need to say it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know,
because I think we always talk about the most important day is today, and we all didn't place a bet today. That's a good day.
Yeah, because I never say, hi, I'm Christina, I'm a compulsive gambler, my last bet. Like what we say our last bet here, but I think it's just so everybody knows kind of where we're at in recovery. But
yeah, just to give them an idea of who we are.
Yeah, in a meeting, I never say it. Like
if I'm in a GA meeting, I always say compulsive gambler. It's just what I learned to say when I first went in there, and I continue to say it if I'm in a meeting, in the meeting.
But see, I implemented in the BGS meetings that you don't have to say that at all. You don't have to say your last bet. You don't have to, I mean, you can just, I just say, say your name. And some people still say it. And you can tell the people that say it are people who also attend GA. And that's really like where the day counting comes from, or from those 12-step programs. But I'm finding more and more women who have never attended GA, never done 12 steps, who struggled with their addiction through COVID. So of course, a lot of those resources weren't available to them. And so they found other resources like the podcast and online groups that are not fellowship based. And so it's been really interesting that a lot of them, they don't day count because they don't know what the day counting is for, and so they'll learn about day counting through like the Facebook groups or something like that. And that's been really interesting to see people who have never said, hi, my name's so-and-so, I'm a compulsive gambler. And it's just fascinating to me to see people show up who's found such different recovery paths.
As you say that, all I can think about is, well, that's good. They don't need the 12 steps, because the 12 steps is about finding community and improving your life. And if you can find community and improve your life in other ways, then good.
Yeah. Did you ever work the steps? I think we've talked about this before. Did you ever work the steps?
No.
Not formally work the steps?
No. I mean, somebody would ask me where I am in my steps, and I'd look at the steps and I'd be like, I did that. I did that. I did that. So that's how I would but I didn't consciously work them. And some might say that's why, I got to the point that I did. I don't know. But no, I didn't. I'm just not. Listen, I didn't graduate from college. I limped my way out of high school. If it's like, hey, do some work on your own.
No, yeah,
unless I find it enjoyable. Like, I would much rather do this than work the 12 steps. I'd much rather talk about my real feelings about everything and talk to you about it than I would work the 12 steps.
Yeah, I do work the steps.
The 12 steps are good. I just didn't. I'm just not that person.
And I don't think you have to work the steps. One of the first ladies I met in GA, like after several meetings, I think she was out of town for a long time, but she came in and she was 10 years plus in recovery, and she had just recently worked the steps. So she was in GA for years and didn't work the steps. And I think the step work really is just, it helps you do kind of that internal work, because I don't work the GA steps. I actually work the steps through a book that's designed for women. So of course there's a lot more prompting and a lot more deep work. And it's just been helpful for me to just kind of learn some different mindset tools and things like that. But I think really recovery is just about doing the internal work, however that shows up, whether it's doing the 12 steps, whether it's working with the therapist, whether it's being active in a community that supports what you're doing, and just being curious about what's next for you in your life. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, just because somebody said do it this way once doesn't mean you have to.
Exactly.
That's the joy of getting older. You kind of learn these things. And you go, oh, I don't have to do it the way everybody else did it. Wow. Cool.
Right. And just because it worked for a bunch of people a long time ago doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody now. So
yeah. And like we said earlier, whatever works, whatever keeps you from gambling.
And we'll support that, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, whatever keeps you from gambling.
Right. Okay. That's a good message to end on.
Whatever works.
And talking helps. There we go. We got that. Hashtag.
Talking helps. It really does. It is amazing once you start jacking your jaws and getting that tension out of your body from all these things that you left unsaid over the years. It just feels better.
Really does. And I think too, it helps when people are receptive to what you're saying. That's why community is so important. And that's why having people who have walked the same road is so important, so that they understand what you're saying and that you feel free that you can share kind of the bad stuff with, and they're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, it's great when you find somebody in your life that you can be like, guess what I did? That's awful.
Right.
And then you make them listen to you for the next hour and a half while you tell them.
That's right.
That's a great practice in life, to find somebody that you can talk to and get it all out there.
Yep.
And there's plenty of people who like to listen. So just find somebody who likes to listen. Or somebody who likes to pretend to listen. Either way, that works for you because you get to talk.
I know a few of those.
Well, Christina, it feels good to be back in the saddle and talking about gambling harm again.
It does.
It'll feel better, I guess, when the day we don't have to talk about it anymore because it's gone. But until that day comes, here we are.
Here we are.
Well, I guess we already did our wrap up with Talking Help, so I'll just say bye.